Each new Sunday meant a brand new challenge, rich with new opportunities. A time for achievement, a time for purpose, a time for glory.
Once you play the game, you feel like you can do anything in life.
And to me, that's what football teaches you. It's not how you start. It's not what the score is at halftime. It's not what the score is when there's 1 minute left. You can still do things to win the game.
I bled with the injuries. I bled with the losses. Actually, that's what makes it such an important part of being a family.
The respect of my peers, my teammates, my coaches is really why you play the game.
Whether it's playing football or being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever vocation you decide to choose, I think you got to be committed and disciplined in your craft.
It was the work that got us here. Unselfishness, to be able to play the game and continue to work. That's why we're here.
I've learned as much from tough losses as I have from great wins. In fact, you appreciate the great wins a lot more because of the tough losses.
He would have loved this more than anything, but after I got done crying and closed the door and I just said, "You did it, Dad."
He was a man of few words, but the one thing he did say, it'd be really special if I were in the Hall of Fame.
Can you believe this?
Every game was a Super Bowl to me.
It's about character building. When nobody's watching, how good are you?
I just felt like my journey definitely has something to give back.
When you've gotten knocked down, to not ever waver from what you believe in and to not ever waver from the goal that you've set.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
Celebrate excellence everywhere.
Be competitive, be intense, but let people see your humility. Courage and toughness and mental toughness. You just go out and play and let your playing do the talking. You don't have to say anything. And I realize as I look through the scriptures that there is more than playing in the NFL. That I was to present my body as a living sacrifice, and that was my way to worship God. And you talk about intensity and competitiveness. That's exciting.
Okay. All right. Well, let me say good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jerry Shockey. I oversee all the youth and educational programs here, and we're extremely excited to we got Jones Middle School, man. We've got people from all directions. We got people in front of Anthony. We got schools, classrooms, 30-something classrooms that are watching in on this as well. Just a reminder to anyone that's participating, whether you're there in the live audience with Anthony or whether you're in one of the classrooms throughout the building, is that make sure, I think your teachers are able to do this for you, is go on your mobile device and on Twitter and use the hashtag HOF values. That's HOF as in Hall of Fame values. That hashtag. Post questions from your students. If you want to put their first name and their letter, I can say, Susie Q from Mrs. Jones' class asks, what's it take to get over, over a tough loss or something like that. So we are extremely excited to be here today for this Heart of a Hall of Famer series. And the real idea and concept behind this, we've done this now with 80-plus gold jackets to about 50,000 students, is really to convey what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. We know our guys like Anthony Muñoz are awesome examples of athleticism and skill and talent. But, man, I can tell you it took so much more than that. It took those Hall of Fame values of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and a whole lot more to get into the Hall of Fame. And so I'm so excited about this series that we get opportunities to hear from the greatest football players ever to talk about what character qualities it takes. And this is what a learning experience, not only for students, but for the teachers that are there, for all the adults, for myself. There is something I pull away from each one of these to apply back to my life as well. So it doesn't stop. Learning doesn't stop just outside of the classroom. But this is not possible today without a number of folks. It took a team of folks to make this possible. First and foremost, we have to thank R.A. Jones Middle School, David Arden, and the rest of the group there that's been working hard to make this technology work. Thank you for all that you've done to make this possible. Thanks to the administration and everyone there for making this possible. Also, thanks to our partners at Extreme Networks. I know my good friends Tracy and Jonathan are there from our friends at Extreme Networks. Thank you for partnering and allow this to be an opportunity for students, but also allowing it to be a free opportunity for students because of your guys' generosity. This is able to continue going. So thank you, Jonathan and Tracy and our good friends at Extreme Networks. But last but definitely not least, we need to thank our students, the teachers and students, because you're the stars of the show here today. You're the ones that are going to be driving the program. Hopefully you guys be ready because we're going to start going to questions here in just a moment after we ask Mr. Muñoz to open up with his opening remarks. But, you're the stars of the show here today. You're the ones that are going to be driving the program, and this doesn't happen without you guys and your teachers making this possible. So with that being said, the video already did an introduction of Mr. Muñoz. So let's, Anthony, what's on your mind? What do you want to share just to open up the program?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm humbled to be here and to be able to share some things about really what's important in life and what's been important in my life. So, I could sit here all day and we could tell football stories, and I could talk about my day with the Cincinnati Bengals and even after I retired. But, to get an opportunity to talk about character is really what motivates me now, and is what my passion is now. Is I have the opportunity not only in this area, which continues to be home. After I retired, stayed in Cincinnati, so I do, continue to live here with my wife and our family and our grandkids. But I get a chance to go across the country and even internationally to talk about character. And to me, that is really what's the essence of what we do. When I played football and even now is trying to be a person of character and really setting those high moral standards and really trying to be the best at what you do, but doing it right. A lot of times people talk about character and you hear about somebody's character. To me, the character really is what you see every day, a person living out, not just the perception of somebody, but it's more of what you see every day. So, being a person of character is really setting high standards for yourself and being excellent in everything you do and doing it the right way. And I'm thankful that I had mentors in my life. I had a mom in my life. I had, relatives, coaches, teachers that really taught me what it meant to be a person of character, to set high standards in everything I did, every part of my life, to strive to be the best. So that's what really gives me a passion, excites me about, now that I'm living my life and this opportunity to be here at R.A. Jones and to share with you. So, I'm looking forward to answering all your questions and talking about, as Jerry talked about commitment and courage and respect and all those values that we take and hold so dear to our hearts as former football players and now as citizens in this great country. So that's what I wanted to start off by saying is that I'm honored and thrilled to be here with all of you and those of you that are looking in this next 45, 50 minutes as we talk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Muñoz, and students and for the adults here, just because I've gotten to know Anthony and his wife, Dee Dee, very well over the years. And if there was a descriptive term that I'd have for him, it would be servanthood. I just see it in his life. I see it in how he interacts with people. I see it in the way he's raised his family and the way that how grounded they are. Where he's taken this opportunity of having this bronze bust, this great thing that's about him and, his teammates and everything that's come along, but he's used that platform to serve other people and especially to serve people in your community. So, that's really what when I think of Anthony Muñoz, I don't even think of a great football player, and he is a great football player. He's got a bronze bust. He's only 303. There are only 303 of those bronze busts here, but I think of him first and foremost as servant-minded and servanthood. So it's just a reminder to you guys that throughout your lives, and even now, that you guys can be doing those things now. Is you know, I found out in life, just in my 38 years of life, it's not about how much you get, it's how much you give. That's where you find true joy and true peace. So let's go ahead. I saw a question came in on Twitter already, so go ahead and keep firing those away. But we're going to start with the class there with Anthony. If we go to a couple questions there, if you guys have one, go ahead and either shout it out real loud. I think we'll be able to hear it. Make sure you talk out clearly.
What drove you to be a great football player? What drives you to be great at what you do today?
What drives me, what drove me to be a great football player, and what drives me today, it has to be commitment, being committed to being the best. And, really, when I thought about my NFL playing days and my career, I wasn't satisfied with just being good. I wanted to be the best. And that was a commitment that we have to make. If you want to be the best student, the best football player, the best drama student, the best player in the band, it's going to take commitment, really working hard and doing things sometimes when you might not feel like doing things. I moved from Southern California to Cincinnati when the Bengals drafted me. My senior year in college, we played the Rose Bowl, and it was 82 degrees on January 1st. Now think about it. For those of you growing up in Cincinnati, think about January 1st here, and think about, I played the Rose Bowl on January 1st, 82 degrees. So the point I want to make is commitment. I come to Cincinnati, I make Cincinnati my home, which is still our home. But during my playing days, the commitment of after the season, having to go out and run and get ready for the next season. It wasn't waiting until March, April, or May until the weather got better. I started running the day after my last game in December. So I ran in December, January, February, and we didn't have an indoor facility. I ran outdoors. So a lot of times there's things that you don't want to do, but you have to do to be the best, and that's commitment. And even now in life, there's times when I wake up in the morning, I say, well, maybe I'll push my snooze button. But no, it's time to get up. I love getting up at 5 o'clock. I get my workout in, and then I can go to the office and do the things that I love doing. And for me, first and foremost, it's my foundation, trying to figure out how to raise money to impact kids. So again, there's times where I might not want to go out and share with companies what we're doing with the foundation, but I'm committed to my foundation. I want that foundation to be the best, because when that foundation becomes the best, we're helping a lot of kids. So it's about commitment that drives me to be the best.
Great first question to start the program. And Mr. Muñoz, just so you know, I want to make sure, I think that camera's pretty loose there, so okay. Don't bump the table.
All right, I talk with my hands, so I get pretty animated.
I'm getting seasick over here.
Okay.
Go ahead with the next question.
Who inspired you most in life and why?
Who inspired me most in life and why? That's a great question. Out of all the great experiences I had, about a month and a half ago, I had probably the worst experience, and I lost my mother. My mom passed away. We were out in California, and she was probably one of my biggest inspirations because, first of all, my mom raised 5 kids by herself. She worked 2 and 3 jobs to provide for us. So when we talk about character and we talk about commitment, right at home, for 18 years before I went off to college, I learned what it meant to have a great work ethic. Because she, working 2 and 3 jobs, she showed us what it meant to work extremely hard to provide for her kids. So I would say the first one would be my mom, right at home, learning how to do a variety of things. Not only what it meant to work hard, but because she was gone most of the time, we had to learn how to cook, how to clean house, how to wash clothes, how to iron. So we had to learn all of the things that really were necessities for us to survive while she was gone. So, I'd have to say, first and foremost, my mom taught me a lot and really was a big influence early on in life.
Great second question. And if you can share with them too, because I know it's part of your testimony to your life is, in your younger days, you're talking about with your mom, the labels and expectations that were set upon you, and what actually transpired in your life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when you are raised by a single parent, being a young man, not having a whole lot, there's statistics, there's expectations that you should become one thing. But, like I said, when you're committed to being the best, you want to get away from those statistics and you want to do the very best. And with that being said, there was an expectation of myself and those around me. Athletics became a big part of my life. School was a big part because Mom made sure that we took care of school before we did anything else. And then, very successful in high school, in athletics and in school. In fact, I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school and was very, very successful. I decided to go to USC, University of Southern California, to go to school there and play football because I had all these plans and all these expectations, again, continuing my career at this great university. But it didn't necessarily happen the way I had planned it out because physically in sports, I got there, and in the 4 years I was at USC, I had 3 knee operations. So I only played one healthy season of football at USC, in which I thought would be my future. So I didn't really know if that was going to become my future as a football player there. So I made sure that I took care of my education, but things still kind of fell in place. And my senior year in college, I was healthy going into that last year and ready to go, but I got hurt again for the 3rd time in the very first game my senior year. So the things that I learned, the things that I talked about, work ethic, commitment, and things like that, really now I had to display in my life and see what I was made of. And after surgery, that first game in college, I rehabilitated. I came back, and after missing the entire season, I played one game, and that was the Rose Bowl. I talked about earlier. I played in that Rose Bowl my senior year, 82 degrees. I played the entire game, probably the best game I played in all 4 years, even though I was hurt most of the time. And I didn't know what was going to happen even after that, if I was going to get a chance to play in the NFL. And I just continued to work extremely hard. And, of course, the rest is history because draft day, when a lot of people said that I would not be drafted, that I wouldn't even play in the NFL. So that's another thing. There'll be a lot of naysayers in your life, people that are going to really question if you can do something. But you have to work hard enough. You have to be committed. And the Cincinnati Bengals gave me an opportunity. Not only did they draft me, but for those of you who watched the draft know that the higher you get drafted, the better it is. And the Bengals had the 3rd pick in the entire draft, and they drafted me with the 3rd pick. So the fact that I only played one game and that I thought all these plans that I had going to USC might not work out, I still continued to work extremely hard, and I got the chance to be drafted and played 13 years in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals. So, again, when people say that maybe you can't do something and you have a dream, you have a passion, and you have the drive and the commitment, just keep going for it and keep working as hard as you can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muñoz. We're going to go to, and just so you guys know, the reason why I keep peeking down at my phone as you see me on it is I'm not playing, Clash of Clans or something like that while Anthony's talking. I'm watching for questions here, but we've got one from Mr. Hanley's class. So, Mr. Hanley, thank you. And for the other teachers that are tuning in, again, it's HOF Values, HOF, hashtag HOF Values on Twitter. Submit a question, and I'll interject that throughout the program. So one of the questions comes from Logan Beds, I think, from Mr. Hanley's class. He wants to ask, what can I do to be the best person possible?
Well, I think, first of all, to be the best at whatever you do, I think it becomes not only a lifestyle but a habit. When you do something one time, let's say you do a good deed for somebody one time and then that's the last, that's not going to be good enough. What you have to do is you have to continue to do something over and over and over. When you're studying for a test, I could never just look at it once and get an A on a test. I had to look at it over and over and over and over. When I was a member of the Cincinnati Bengals, I had to practice over and over and over, and then hopefully Sunday afternoon it would pay off and I would play extremely well. So when you're looking at being the best, it has to become a lifestyle. It has to become a habit. It has to become something that you do over and over and over. So I think that's a key. To be the best at whatever you want to be the best at, to be the best person, you have to be, again, I think Jerry, Mr. Shockey, had a great word when he started, servant or selfless. You have to become selfless. You have to make others more important than yourself. One of the things that I just love, we have 8 great grandkids, but there's one of our grandkids that every time he sees someone and he sees me, he says, "How's your day going?" And he's like 6 years old. "How are you doing?" And, you can tell that he loves knowing how other people are doing. So I think that's what you have to do. You have to place other people's interests, other people before you, and really see and do what you can do in order to help other people. And I think that's what happens, is that becomes a habit, and then you become a person of character because you become selfless, you become committed to being the best.
Well, thank you very much. You guys hear that? Anthony Muñoz said, "Mr. Shockey." You like that? We got to record it. I'm keeping that. So let's go ahead. We'll go to one more, and then we'll come back to the classroom here. I think we have, looks like from Mr. Humphrey's class, and it looks like Helena, and I'll just take the second part of the question. Did you ever want to give up?
Did I ever want to give up? There was a time where I don't think it was 100% that I said I want to give up, but I think going through that third knee operation, and it was like, I'd gone through 2 rehabs, I'd come back and I'd played, and then that third one was kind of like, because not only did I have to rehabilitate and get my leg back, but now it was something, there was a question about would I still be able to do something that I loved, and that was, would I still be able to play football? And so there was a period of time there where, like I said, it wasn't a total give up, because it was like, do I redirect and go in another direction and try to be great in another direction? So it was a little more of a redirection than it was totally giving up. But yeah, it was tough. My wife and I was married at the time, and I would come back and I would just be frustrated because I saw the progress in the leg getting better, but it was like, I thought time was running out and the season was, kind of flying by, and I didn't know if I would be able to play again. So, but it was tough. But it was one of those things where I had a task. I wanted to be persistent, and there was a task in front of me, and I was determined to finish that task and work through it. And then I had one of the things that you have to really look at, because you are young right now, is look at the resources you have around you, parents, teachers, and utilize those resources. Utilize the encouragement. And that was one thing that I had during that time where I was thinking, is all this worth it? I had people saying, you can do it. Even though I had some naysayers, there was people like my wife and relatives and coaches that were saying, keep working, keep going. So really pay attention to the resources and utilize and use the resources you have around you, because that will get you over the hump when you start thinking in your mind, is it worth it? Do I need to continue to work as hard as I am? And the answer is yes. Keep working, because you can get through it.
And Mr. Muñoz, you brought up a good point too, as you're talking about that, about the people, the people that are around you. A lot of times we think of peer pressure as a negative thing. There's people that are tempting you to smoke and drink and do things that are bad, but there's also positive peer pressure too. Can you talk about, that's one of the things that I find with our Go Jackets, they surrounded themselves with some awesome people. So can you talk a little bit about that and who some of those folks were in your life?
I can. As was just said, it can be a negative peer pressure. It can be a positive. To me, a negative peer pressure, that's exactly what it is, negative peer pressure. I think I look at positive peer pressure not only as positive, but also it can be holding you accountable. The pressure you get from your peers, like when I was a member of the Cincinnati Bengals, I saw it as peer pressure, but I saw that my guys like Boomer Esiason and Max Montoya, my teammates, were holding me accountable because they were working extremely hard to be the best. So therefore, I had to work extremely hard to be the best. So yeah, it can go either way, and it's your decision how and what direction you want to go. My decision was to take that peer pressure, to take that accountability, and be the best, because I used one name earlier, Boomer Esiason. I knew that this guy had the passion, the drive, the determination to be a winner. And as our quarterback on the offense, I wanted that pressure to rub off on me and to hold me accountable and to study just as hard and to prepare just as hard. So, yeah, you can use that either way. So it's your decision, it's your choice. And I would say to you, use it in a positive way. Surround yourself with people that are going to hold you accountable and are going to have positive peer pressure on your life.
Okay, let's go to a couple more questions from Jones Middle School or from the students that are in front of Mr. Munoz, and then we'll go back to some Twitter questions.
What is the most courageous thing you've ever seen someone do?
What is the most courageous thing that I've ever seen somebody do? To me, it's being courageous is stepping out and not being afraid to fail. Is that, to me, is what takes courage. I've seen a lot of examples, a lot of guys that have been courageous, that have come back from injury, that have stepped out after maybe losing a loved one or maybe coming back from an injury. One guy that comes to my mind who showed a lot of courage and really being courageous in his career is a guy that I played with, Tim Crumry. He broke his leg very, very badly in the Super Bowl, but he had enough courage to come back, and he finished his career. And after a year or so, he came back and played at the level that he was playing, which was a very, very, very high level. To me, that took a lot of courage. It was an act of courage to come back after that serious leg injury. I mean, his leg just broke right in half, but he wanted to come back, and he was committed, and he took character, and he came back. So to me, that was brave. That was stepping out and saying, even though I broke my leg, I'm going to step back and do what I was doing when I did that. You see, there might be a time when you do something and you fail, and you might be afraid to go back in that area because you failed and you're afraid to fail again. But the only way you're going to be successful is to try it again and get through and really get through that and do it right. So I would encourage you. And to me, courage is all about, you're going to fail. You're going to fail sometimes, but be brave, be courageous, and continue to strive until you overcome that failure and you become successful again.
Great question. Let's go to another in the class.
How did you handle people telling you that you couldn't do something?
The way I handled people telling me I couldn't do something is it drove me that much harder. It made me work that much harder. And not to necessarily verbally say, here, I told you so, but it was like, here's one thing that I have an older brother. I have two older brothers, but the oldest one, he's 8 years older, told me when I was a young man, he said, you never have to talk about how good you are. If you're good enough, people are going to talk about how good you are. So for those that said that I couldn't do something, I didn't have to go back and say, well, you see, you said I couldn't do something. Well, I did it. It just drove me to work that much harder and to accomplish something. And then if they saw that I did it, fine. If they didn't, that was fine too. But when they said I couldn't do something, when anybody said I couldn't do something, that usually drove me extremely hard to do and to compete and to really accomplish something that someone said I couldn't do.
Okay, we're going to go to a couple Twitter questions and we'll come back to the classroom. I like this one here. It's from Lacey Davis, and again, this is Mr. Humphrey's class. Lacey asked, does it take a lot of strength to get up with a positive attitude every day when life is hard? It's a great question.
It is a great question. I think it does take a lot of strength to get up when you're going through tough times. And, you just, again, you have to be determined to get up. You have to be determined to get up and change that. I tell a lot and I get a chance to speak a lot. I tell people it's not a matter of if you're going to go through some tough times, but when you go through those tough times, how are you going to handle them? So if you're going through a tough time, how are you going to handle not wanting to face it, not wanting to get up? You have to get up. You have to face it. As I spoke earlier, you have to be able to face it and work right through it. Do whatever you can to work through it. Seek advice, seek counsel that are going to help you get through that problem, because I can tell you the tough times I went through, it would have been very difficult to go through it myself. If I didn't have people that encouraged me, people that gave me great counsel, it would have been probably easier to say, the heck with it, I'm going to give up. But when you're having trouble getting up in the morning, get up and go get some counsel. Go to someone that you really respect that will give you some advice on how to get through that.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to go to Rita Nicole, and it's Mr. Humphrey's class again. They're on a roll here. And Rita asks, if you didn't pursue football, where do you think you would be in life?
That's a great question. I've thought about that a lot because after I retired, I was still young. I played 13 years. I was still young, so I had to go in and do some other things. But some of the things I experienced after I retired, I had a chance to coach high school football. I've had a chance to coach a lot. I've had a chance to, work and teach young men certain things. And I really believe if I hadn't played football, I've been out of college a lot of years, and I probably would still be either teaching or coaching on the high school level if I hadn't played in the NFL, because I enjoyed it that much. I coached high school for 3 years, and the thing with coaching is I believed I had a lot of knowledge to pass on, but to me it was more than just teaching them football knowledge. To me it was about what we're doing right here. Hopefully passing something on to young people that I was taught by mentors and by coaches and by teachers that helped me out in life. So that's the way I looked at it. If I hadn't played in the NFL, to be able to coach and teach young men and women in the classroom and on the football field, to give them football knowledge, but also give them life knowledge is something that I'd probably still be doing right now.
Another great question. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the students that are there in front of you, Mr. Munoz.
Would you have decided to play baseball or basketball?
I'm sorry?
Would you have decided to play baseball, basketball, or football if you didn't get hurt?
Would I have decided to play basketball or baseball over football if I hadn't gotten hurt? You know what? I think sometimes your physical abilities kind of direct you in a way. Even though I loved baseball more than football growing up and even in high school, I kind of became self-aware and realized that football is where my future was going to be. And even though the injuries had a big part to do with that, because I still loved baseball. I had a chance to play 1 year of baseball in college and still loved it. But I saw that football was the direction I should have gone in. And so, even if I'd have been healthy the whole time, I probably would have played more baseball in college, but I still believe that football would have been the direction I would have went into professionally. That's a great question.
Great question. Next one there.
How did it feel to play in the Super Bowl?
How did it feel to play in the Super Bowl? It felt great. And there's several things why it felt great. I played my entire career here in Cincinnati. Great sports fan. So the 2 times that we went to the Super Bowl, we had a chance to play every playoff game here in Cincinnati. The first round of the playoff game and then both AFC championship games, we got to play here in front of our fans. So to me, that was the great thing about eventually going to the playoffs and going into the Super Bowl, because, a lot of times there's teams that get into the playoffs and might go to the Super Bowl and fans don't get a chance to watch them in their home stadium. But I felt while we played, and still even now, we have great football fans, and the fact that we got to play in front of them was great. But playing in the Super Bowl, that's what you work for. That's what I worked for from December, January until July when we went to camp. That's what we worked for in July, August in camp, and then during the whole football season for 16 games. So the fact that we got to play in 2 Super Bowls with the guys that I absolutely loved, and even today we have great relationships with. I have great relationships with guys that I played with. That's what you work for. And we got to play in 2, so I'm thankful for that.
All right, we're going to go back to a couple Twitter questions here, and I've got one from Mrs. Gillenwater here. So she asked from Ms. Gillenwater's class, have you ever made any mistake that has made you a stronger person?
Well, first of all, I've made plenty of mistakes. And, hopefully, and I tell people, and I know I'll get to that, but hopefully all the mistakes we make, we learn from. Therefore, when you learn from your mistakes, it makes you stronger. Makes you a stronger person. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to pick one of the many mistakes that have made me a stronger person. I think, first of all, having to do with physical workouts. I mean, I think the fact in high school I played so many sports that conditioning and weightlifting wasn't as big as it was when I got into college. I think that was a mistake, not starting early on in weight training. sometimes you don't treat people the way you should. Maybe some friends growing up, you don't treat them as well. Then you realize, what a mistake that was. You learn from that. You become a stronger person. You become a better person, realizing that you want to treat people the way you want to be treated. So, those are maybe a couple mistakes I made growing up as a kid and maybe in high school, that I had my group of friends and maybe excluded other people when you shouldn't, because we're all the same. I mean, we might look differently, might be different colors, different sizes, but we're basically the same. So we treat everybody with respect, and we'll get that respect in return.
And we'll go to one more, then we'll go back to the students with in front of you. And this is Lenora Broom asks, how important is your faith?
How important is my faith? My faith is the most important thing in my life. For the last 38 years, I realized as a sophomore at USC that faith had to be the number one thing in my life. So it's been the most important thing in my personal life, in my marriage. We just celebrated 38 years a couple weeks ago, my wife, Didi, and I. It's the most important thing as a husband, as a father, now as a grandfather, and as a community member. So that, when you talk about what motivates me, what drives me, it's my faith. So it's the most important thing in my life.
All right, let's go back to a couple questions with students in front of you. Speak up, please.
What advice would you give to a middle school athlete who's dreaming to play professional sports?
What advice would I give to a middle school athlete who wants to play professional sports? Probably the same advice I was given as a young man, and that's take care of your school. Make sure you work just as hard in the classroom as you are conditioning, preparing for your sports. That's the advice I was given. Is just work as hard as you can, because I think there's a carryover. If I hadn't, learned how to read and how to study, and then all of a sudden I get to the professional level, and the first week as a member of the Cincinnati Bengals, they gave me a playbook and said every night they would give us and say, you got to learn this, and you had to learn it quickly. If I hadn't really made it a habit on how to study, how to read, and how to retain, because I saw a lot of guys that had the physical ability but didn't have the mental ability to really capture and maintain and keep everything. So that's what I would tell you. Whatever pro sport you want to pursue, make sure you really become a person that studies well, that really works as hard as you can now, because it's going to help you. A lot of people think, look at a pro football player and say, okay, you go out Sunday and you play and that's it. The rest of the week you just kind of get ready in the weight room. But no, we spent more time in the classroom when I was playing in the NFL than we did out on the practice field. And that was studying, game planning, studying your opponent, learning how to retain and how to keep all that knowledge, because once you get on the football field, that's when you have to use that. So that's the advice I would give you.
And I think to go along with what Mr. Muñoz said there, there's a statistic, and I think it's still true. It's the NFL Players Association used to push this out there, is that players that have completed their 4-year college education, players in the National Football League, they earn 20 to 30% more money, and their careers last 50% longer than players that have not completed their 4-year college education. So the statistics are there that whether you're going to be in the NFL or whether you want to be, some other profession, the more education you have, the more money you'll make, and the longer that you'll be at that career as well. So, so I just think that those statistics speak volumes about what exactly Anthony's saying, because it's not necessarily just about the education; it's about the work ethic and the commitment that you make to studying to that. So, let's go back to one more from the classroom, and then we'll go back to the Twitter question.
Do you ever miss playing football again?
Do I ever miss playing football again? There's just certain parts I miss about football, okay? So the first thing is we spend so much time together with the guys. That's the first thing you miss. I mean, we go to camp, we travel with each other. We're there all day with each other. So you miss that part of it. I don't miss camp. It's a little different now, but when we were in camp, it was 4 weeks. You were, really getting after it pretty hard. And then probably missed the money. There's a little more money now, but I don't really know. I've been out of the league a lot of years now, been out 23 years. I don't really miss playing. And the one thing I probably miss is the competition, because once you leave the NFL, it's hard to find something that with that type of competition. You can compete in other things, in the business world, on the golf course, but the type of competition that we go through on the football field against other guys, other defenses, other teams, you really can't replace that. But, I've been out so long, I just enjoy talking about it. I enjoy watching it. And there's times now where I watch highlights and I see myself and I'm like, that can't be me. I didn't do that. It's because I've been out of it so long. But I can honestly say that I miss it very, very little.
And Anthony, if you don't mind sharing with them, and I think you've shared it before, what was your first contract back in the late 70s there? It's not what it used to be and not what it is today.
Well, my first year, which was a lot of money. I mean, you have to understand, I came from not a whole lot, and back there was a lot of money. I was a third pick in the entire draft, and I made $80,000 a year. Now I think a left tackle, I was just informed, might make $12 to $15 million a year if he's one of the best in the league. So that's a little bit more money than what I made my first year. So I'm not going to complain though, because for 13 years and all the money I made, to play a game that I loved and to get paid for it. But yeah, the money is a little more now, so there's a little difference there.
That's not standard inflation there. That's a little bit more than that. So let's go ahead and go back to classes here. Let's see. DC Rose asks, did you have any inspirational teachers?
I had an inspirational teacher and I had an inspirational coach. Like I told you, my mom taught us how to wash clothes, how to iron, how to cook, how to clean house. And I had some great high school teachers and great college professors, but my home ec teacher in high school, Mrs. Marilyn Falcon, was just, the best. She knew how to get the best out of you. And of course, I had an advantage over most students because I went to home ec class and I could cook, so a lot of people looked at it like, what are you doing? You're a guy, you're a football player, you're a baseball player, and you can cook. But I have to say, Mrs. Falcon had a big impact on me. And then I had a baseball coach that I met when I was 7 years old, and he was my high school baseball coach, and I still have a 50-year relationship with him, and that's Coach Jim Seaman, who coached me on the baseball field and had great baseball knowledge. But for a young man that didn't have a father, never met a father, he was that male role model for a lot of us that didn't have that. But he taught us how to play baseball, but how to play it correctly, how to play it with character and integrity. And even today, he's a great man. Him and his wife, we bring them out every summer for our foundation dinner. So those are probably the two, one coach, one teacher that really had a big impact on my life.
All right, we've got another one from Emily W, and I love her handle. It's Weirdo765. Thank you, Emily. That's great. What is your most memorable experience in football and why?
Wow, most memorable experience in football had to be. Now you have to understand, as a former offensive lineman, unless you're an offensive center, you have to get the ball to the quarterback. They don't really let us touch the football, So it's the wide receivers, the running backs, the quarterback. My fifth year in the league, we're playing a team up in the northern part of Ohio, which Cleveland Browns. Okay, I'll name the name. And Sam Weiss was a rookie head coach. Boomer Esiason was a rookie quarterback. And we needed a touchdown to tie the game and to go into overtime. And a rookie coach called a play that a rookie quarterback would throw the football to an offensive lineman, and that was me. We had a play. The first week of my career, that week, they put a pass play in for me to catch the ball. I never thought it would happen. But Sam Weiss called it. Boomer Esiason threw me the ball. I caught the ball for a touchdown. We kicked the extra point. We tie the game. We go into overtime. We win it with the field goal. But that had to be, with everything else I went through, that has to be one of the biggest memories of my NFL football career.
All right, we're going to go back to questions back in the audience, but I just saw this come through. Daniel Denny, you're going to like this one, Anthony. He asks, and you don't have to answer this, but he asks, why do the Bengals stink and the Steelers rule? So
I'm just going to answer it briefly. Okay, when it comes to, as fans, you can argue all you want, But all I have to go by is when I was a player, right, for 13 years. So the Steelers had no Super Bowls in those 13 years. And go back into the archives and look at the wins, losses of those 13 years, and then ask that question again. See, I can't answer now. I'll let the fans argue about them now, but I'm just going to back up my 13 years when we played. And I know for a fact there was no Steelers Super Bowls. And I might be wrong, but I think the Bengals came out on victories in those 13 years. All right, let's go. Next question.
Daniel, and just for the teachers to know, Anthony knows I'm a pretty big Steeler fan, so we all have each other anyway. So just so you know, that's the only reason why I brought that up. So let's go back to the questions with the students there with Mr. Muñoz.
How did you manage studying for school and training for football?
How did I manage studying for school and training for football? It becomes time management. In high school, it's not easy, but it's a little easier because you have mom shaking you, waking you up, saying, is your homework done? Once you get to college, you don't have your mom there or your dad, your mom and dad. It's a commitment that you have to make. And a lot of times it might be if you don't get your schoolwork done, then you don't do something that you love. And I'll share an example with you. And I think it goes back, Jerry, to the question you asked that was asked about a mistake and what made you stronger. I'll never forget. I was right in the middle of basketball practice. I think it was my junior year in high school. And all of a sudden I see my assistant baseball coach walking on the basketball floor, and I'm thinking, what's he doing here? Well, he pulled me aside, and I was taking an advanced comp class. And I can talk, I can go out and speak, but to write, I always struggled to write a paper. Well, I wasn't doing very well in this advanced comp class. So he said, and this was going into pretty sure it was my junior year. He said, if you don't get that grade up in your advanced comp class, you're not going to be able to play baseball. And that's all it took was one time that I knew that I made a mistake and I was not doing well in that class. And that was the only time I jeopardized not being eligible to play in high school out of all those. So you have to commit yourself. You have to have time management, and you have to prioritize your studies and make sure. And that was one thing as a kid that my mom told us, during the school year, if you want to go out and play baseball, football, basketball, you had to have your homework done first. In the summertime, if you want to go play baseball all day long, you do your chores first, and then you can go out. So that was about making sure you did what was important, and you got to do what you enjoyed doing. Does that answer your question? All right.
Next question out there.
How did you overcome all your injuries, and what were some of the injuries you had?
How did I overcome all my injuries, and what were some of them? Okay, well, let's start with college, okay? So I had three knee operations in college. Again, the way you overcome something is, I spoke earlier about utilizing and using the resources. Okay, so the doctor fixes it, right? So it's fixed. Now I have to utilize the strength coach and the trainers. I knew the rehabilitation was very important. So whenever the trainer said I had to be in there, rehabilitate, I was in there doing all the exercises and even more. Once I was to a point where I could get back into my strength training, I knew when I got it strong, it was going to be better. So that's how I overcome. You just have to be committed. You have to just listen to those that are experts. I knew I wasn't an expert in weight training or in rehab. So I had to listen to those who were, they went to school for that. Trainers went to school to be certified to be trainers. They knew what it took to rehab student athletes. And then weight coaches know what it takes to get your strength back where it should be. So that's how I overcome every single one of them. So when I got to the Cincinnati Bengals, the same thing. I might not have missed games during the season with injuries, but I did have to have surgeries after the season on my shoulder, had a elbow, and that's, again, you overcome by being dedicated and knowing that it's very important to do what you have to do to get you back. And it's in every part of your life, doing what you have to do to be the best. And so that's how I overcame injuries and got back on the playing field.
And we've got a question submitted here from, I think it's Salem Herrera. And I think it's a great question because it's something very pertinent to today. Were you ever bullied as a kid?
Well, I was always about a foot taller than most kids, so I don't believe I was ever physically bullied by kids, but because I was so much bigger, as I look back, and at times it would affect me, but I really didn't let it affect me totally. Kids would say stuff about my size, the size of my feet or my toes or the size. So I did go through some of that. But I had people that encouraged me too, that got me through that. So I think, it doesn't only happen to young men and women that might not be as big as somebody or as athletic as somebody, but it also happens to people that are, larger than others and more athletic than others. So I do remember some of that, but again, I had individuals that really helped me through that, encouraged me. And that's what I would say to each and every one of you, and that you would encourage those that might be getting bullied to not believe those that are bullying them, and then step in for, and tell those that are bullying to stop. And I got a great example of that. I have a son and daughter. I have a son who, when he entered high school, he was 6'6", about 270 pounds his freshman year in high school. And we as parents would have never known, but some parents sought us out, and they shared with us. They said, we just want to let you know as parents how much we appreciate your son, Michael. And we're like, okay, so what did Michael do? They said their son was getting bullied in the hallway of high school. At their high school, their son was being bullied by 2 or 3 young men. And Michael stepped in and told those guys to stop, that they should stop bullying this other young man. And it ended right there. And he went home and told his parents that our son had helped him getting, for these other students to stop bullying. So that's what I'd recommend to you, to stop. If you see somebody bullying somebody else, stand up, be courageous, be brave, and be committed, and tell them to stop, that there's no need to be bullying other students.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go to one more here, and this is from Terry Lynn Webb. And Terry asks if you can talk about your foundation and how it helps kids.
Yes, it's the Anthony Muñoz Foundation, and basically we engage the tri-state area, this whole area, to impact youth mentally, physically, and spiritually. So when I started the foundation 15 years ago, just like a lot of what I've talked about, coaches and teachers and parents and friends that help me out, we want to be that vehicle to help other students out in this area. We have mentoring program. We mentor elementary kids once a week. During the school year, we try to do other activities. We have character camps. We have overnight character camps for young men where we teach them a little football, but we teach them about character. We teach them about teamwork. We have a youth leadership seminar that hopefully when you get into high school, your high school will be a part of it. It's a one-day event at Xavier University. We usually have about 100 high schools there. It's a full-day event where we try to give you character, we call them nuggets, or things that you can take back to your school and to your community. Then we have breakout sessions. We have speakers that talk about leadership. And at the end of the day, we challenge you. We give you a charge to go out in your community and put together community service projects. Then we give out 23 scholarships. We just gave out about 3 weeks ago. We gave out 18 one-time scholarships, $2,000 to $5,000 one-time scholarships. And then in the summer in June, we're going to give out 8 $20,000 scholarships. So when you get into high school, I would advise you, I would recommend that you start looking on our website, because we're going to, and hopefully by the time you're seniors in high school, we'll take that from 8 and we'll have built up enough money that we can give out 16 $20,000 scholarships. That's my dream. So those are the things that we do with our foundation. So I would recommend, like I said, when you get into high school, that hopefully you can come up at Xavier if it's still there, or we have another venue, but hopefully it's still at Xavier. You can come up and say, when I was in junior high, you came to our middle school and talked to us. Now I'm at your leadership seminar. Or maybe when I'm interviewing one of you to possibly win one of our scholarships, you can say, you talked to me and my classmates at our middle school. So those are the things we do with the Anthony Muñoz Foundation, and we love doing it, and hopefully we continue to grow and impact more and more young men and women in this community.
And I think what's amazing is, number one, Anthony and his group have raised, it's been $10 million plus for that. But also recently, and I know Anthony's not big on self-promoting himself here, but he was just a recipient of not too long ago, because some of our staff was there. It was a Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, on which President Obama was a featured speaker there at that gala. He was honored as the Medallion of Excellence award. Can you talk about that, Anthony, and just, a little bit about that? Because those awards don't come by, it's like a Hall of Fame career. It took a lot of hard work, and it's all this work that Anthony's been doing with the Hispanic community and with his foundation and everything else, that he's being recognized. Not that he wants those recognitions, but it helps give him a platform to further things out. Can you talk about that real quick, Anthony?
Yeah, this is probably some of the most awkward talks I give is talking about awards. And first of all, I totally understand when you win an award, you have those around you that you have to thank. And the work that we've been doing here in Cincinnati and nationally, and even in Mexico, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, I've been involved with them over several years, and what they do is they provide scholarship for Hispanic kids nationally. And we do. I've been involved in a multicultural. Here in Cincinnati, we have a couple of our programs are for Hispanic kids. We've been involved with a national Hispanic initiative, and I do that. My grandparents and great grandparents are from Mexico, and even though I was born here, my mom and our relatives taught us about our culture that my relatives come from. So anytime I'm recognized like I was from the caucus, it means a lot, but also understand that it's the work that we're doing as a team. And that's, we've been in over 23 NFL cities working with Hispanic youth. Like I said, this Friday, my son and I and 3 of our staff, we jump on a plane and we're going to Mexico to work with hopefully about 400 youth. And then we'll have a coaches clinic. We'll do another one in Mexico City in November, and then one more before the year's out, Monterrey, Mexico. So, it's those type of things that I love giving back to, not only, in the community, but I really try to give back to my culture, and that's the Hispanic culture. So, and again, we do that. I do that not to be recognized, but that was, I'm humbled by that award in Washington, D.C. And like Jerry mentioned, the president of the Hall of Fame was there, and another staff, like George Veras, was there. So that meant a lot that representatives from the Hall of Fame, my wife and I were there. So anytime that happens, it really kind of puts a stamp on what we're doing. And that's really all I want is that there's a stamp put on that what we're doing here is having an impact. So we'll continue to do that.
And and President Obama was there too as a speaker. So just to let you know how big of an event that was. But Anthony took it just like an offensive lineman would. They do all the work but want none of the credit. So that's just the mentality that he's had throughout life and it's carried on obviously till now. So I think we got time for one more question in front of you, and then we'll ask closing remarks.
Mr. Muñoz, you've played in a lot of big games. You've talked a lot today about goal setting and perseverance. You've got 740 kids who've been working all year for the big thing that starts tomorrow. Any advice for them as they get ready to kick off K-Prep?
Just enjoy it. That's whatever you do. It's all about hard work. It's all about, I've talked about it, commitment and, being courageous and, striving for excellence. But if you don't enjoy it, you have to enjoy it. And that's one thing that, I've been able to do during my playing days, even going through the tough times, and now as a retired NFL football player, and I love working even now. I try to work as hard as I can. You have to enjoy it. You have to just take it in. The Super Bowls were brought up. The first Super Bowl, I was just so bent and on just, hey, I got to do this, and I didn't enjoy it like the second one. The second one. And it was a little warmer. We played the second one in Miami in 80-degree weather. The first one was in, 20 below in Michigan. So, but just enjoy what you're doing because it's tough. There's tough work that goes into it. But, when I'm doing all these football camps and I'm doing all these different things, we talk about how hard it is. But one of the first things I tell young men and women is have fun. I say, I can guarantee that you're going to learn a lot. And I probably can guarantee if you apply yourself, you're going to learn a lot in this building. I can guarantee that you will because I'm sure you have a great staff here. But I can't guarantee that you're going to have fun. That's up to you. That's up to you to have fun. And I tell the kids that at all our camps and all our events. I say you got to have fun through the process. So I would really stress that, because as serious as I can get and as focused I can get, I love having fun and I love enjoying things.
Mr. Muñoz, we're coming down to the close here. Is there anything either you'd like to reiterate that you've said, or anything else you'd like to touch on that we haven't discussed yet?
No, I would just, I would say I see a lot of you sitting in here, and I don't know how many of you are close friends or how many of you hang out together, but I would just go back to a point I made earlier. I really believe the reason you're in here is you're probably some of the leaders on this campus. And I would encourage you to continue to go in a direction of being good leaders, positive leaders, because we can be negative leaders. And I've seen that. Just like we talked earlier with Jerry, we can fall into negative peer pressure, but fall into that positive peer pressure, become positive leaders on your campus. And, those students that some of the students might not talk to, go up and befriend them, because they're special too. Talk to them, include them in your conversations, invite them to sit with you at lunch. You might have your group that you sit and eat lunch with. Be inclusive. I mean, that was one of the best things that Sam Weiss did for us as a head coach 1 year at camp. He took, and Max Montoya, who lives in northern Kentucky, he lives down here. Max and I roomed together for 10 years. We're both from California. We're both Hispanic. We both played in colleges, went to colleges. Although he went to that other school, he went to UCLA. We still roomed together in camp. We roomed together on the road for 10 years. But Sam Weiss, we went into camp and he said, I'm going to make the room list. He put me with the defensive player. He put me with an African-American. He put white with black, brown with – he mixed us up. And if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't have learned about guys that I was with every single day during the season. I would not have learned about them, their background, where they're from, their siblings, their family, their culture, if that wouldn't happen. So that's why we do what we do at our foundation, is we have programs where we enter urban and suburban kids, because each is going to learn from each other. So that's one thing I would recommend for all of you. Learn from somebody that you might not know. Go become a friend with someone that might not be your friend. And you might find out that you have a lot more in common that you think you might have. And that's my parting words. That's what I would leave you with today.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you join me in giving a round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer Anthony Muñoz?